So, do you have any questions you want to mention right now? Yeah.
It seems like, when you wear it so outwardly, intentionally or unintentionally, you're automatically a representative for Islam. Is that a lot of pressure? And I know you mentioned that you make mistakes, but a lot of times, if I make a mistake, then I made a mistake. But if you make a mistake, then a Muslim made a mistake, or Islam is, you know what I mean? So
yeah.
It seems like a lot of pressure. How do you deal with that, or have you had any experience?
I think that's an incredibly important question, and it really speaks to the reality we live in America. When someone does something to you, a lot of times, if they come from a community of color, the first thing people think are, oh, it's because they're X, oh, it's because they're Y. Bad drivers, person who does a taxi, for real. That's the stereotypes people start thinking. Those are not true. But the reality is our society has ingrained, from the very beginning of our founding, a lot of racist tendencies. So we, as going through the school system, I'm an education major, we talk about this all the time. The way the curriculum ingrains people to start understanding being American as excluding everyone else. And so I definitely bear that brunt, and so do women who choose to cover, or men who look Muslim, even people who look Muslim who aren't Muslim. Unfortunately, people who are other religions have been killed because people think they're Muslim and they want to get back at them for whatever reason, right? But for me personally, it's a huge struggle, especially when I drive. I try really hard to be a good driver, for real. But there are times I make a mistake. I didn't see the car that, I didn't mean to cut him off or whatever, right? So I'm going, and in that moment I'm like, oh my God. Normally, I almost always have a hood on, and I'll show you what I do. This is the move which must be made. So that it's not my religion, it's just a person with a hood. So normally I'm driving, right? And I'm like, oh man, I just made a serious mistake. So my eyes are not actually covered. But I try to mask it because I know people are going to automatically associate with my religion, and it's not my religion, it's just me. I have problems, right? But on the flip side, I have serious problems. On the flip side, what's also helpful for me is it's always keeping me in check. So I can't just be rude to someone if I've had a bad day, because they're going to blame my entire religion on that. So if I'm messed up to someone, or especially, normally it's completely accidentally, I will make it a point. I will go and buy them a gift and come back. Someone I've never met before. I accidentally sped in a parking lot once. I mean, it wasn't an accident, to be honest. It was 8 in the morning, community college that I was taking a summer class in. Nobody was there. I went super fast because I was late to a final. And a girl gets out of her car and she's like, you almost hit my car. And I didn't. I was so far from her car. But I was like, man, now she thinks Muslims are so bad, right? So she was in my class, although I hadn't really spoken to her before. So I went and I bought a Jamba Juice gift certificate between our break, and then I went back to her, and I was like, look, I'm really sorry. I don't want you to think it's my whole religion. And she was like, I really started to think that. She actually said, she's like, if you hadn't done this, I really would have thought that you guys are what we see in the media. So yes, it's a huge responsibility because I have to make sure that my actions are way, way, way better than if it was just normal Maryam. Muslim Maryam wearing hijab is whew, I better make sure I'm on top of my game because otherwise my whole religion is on trial, right? So I'm sure that many of you here have had those same experiences. I know I've spoken to this girl a number of times. She's sitting in an anonymous cafe in Westwood. People go up to her and just start yelling at her, random things, poor thing. And she's like, I'm converted to Islam, okay? So I'm sure, how many of you have had those experiences? Muslims who cover you up. And even if you don't, I'm sure anyone who's Latina here, have you guys had experiences like that? Oh, it's because you're Latina? Yeah, yes. People who are, yeah, man, that's the reality. That's what our country, unfortunately, is at right now. But that's why it takes conversations like these to start changing them. And that's why we so appreciate people being here, so that we can actually have these conversations start shifting the way we think. So again, power clap. Thank you. Thanks for that question. Any other questions? Yeah.
Are there guidelines as far as hijab? Can it be is it no bright super colors or
Oh, that's a great question. So the main guidelines is that you should cover everything in a loose, modest way that's not see-through, and that your hands and that your face can show. Some people also believe covering the face is an obligation. It's through a different interpretation of the verse that talks about it, and that's a person's choice too if they choose that that's the way that they're going to follow. in terms of colors and things like that, you can wear whatever color you want. You can have whatever pattern. The main issues is just that it's loose, that it doesn't show like curves of the body, and that it's not transparent. The main purpose of it is to worship God. Wisdom behind it is that it allows me to be to make a statement that I want to be seen for who I am and not for what my outside is like. And so when I started wearing it, actually, I had a number of experiences, like when I fully started wearing it, where, like for example, I was on campus once, and I was sitting like at a table similar to this, and a guy walked past me, and he was like talking to me about why I cover, and I told him, and then he was like, yeah, but when I see like someone like her, he points at some random girl, and he's like, the first thing I see when I look at her is her chest. Except he said that it was something much more explicit than that. And then he looked at me and he's like, the first thing I see when I look at you is that you got your head covered. And I was like, that is the point. To protect me from people like you. It's not the point. I don't mean to say it's the purpose, but it's definitely a wisdom behind it. So when we dress in a way that also facilitates that, the purpose or the wisdom is to allow for our society to interact in a way where those things which are often what our society judges women on, the way she looks, her weight, things like that, shouldn't be the mechanisms for why we choose someone over another. They shouldn't be why we believe somebody is more popular or somebody deserves to be like at a certain scale in society. What it's supposed to be about is who you actually are as a person and your intelligence. So wearing something conducive to that is basically just kind of like the idea. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah? Thanks for asking. Anyone else have a question? No pressure. So on 3. Yeah.
I don't know if it was discussed the other day, came in late, but I was just wondering what is the best way for like women of color to support Muslim women, because like I know when someone says something, I'll try to make, it's like, well, what are you talking about? Or interrupt or ask, why are you thinking that way or something like that, but I don't know any other suggestions or ways that we can be your ally.
Thank you so much for that question. For real. I think that what you mentioned is already a huge step in being an ally. Just educating people around you, even if you don't know the reasons for whatever it is, just being like, look, I don't know if that's really true. Like maybe we should research it before we actually come to those conclusions. Just providing a venue where people start to think. Because this happens again with anything. We're in groups and people will start making fun of a race or a gender or whatever. And it's like, why do you think that's true, right? So just questioning, coming to events like this, I mean, the fact that you're here is the fact that anyone's here is a huge testament to who that person is as an individual. So, I mean, wearing hijab on hijab day so that you could show that outward alliance, sharing things on Facebook when your Muslim friends post something that has to do with something and pass it on so other people can be educated, but just basically spreading education. And the fact that you even are on that wavelength to think about wanting to act as an ally is a huge deal. So thank you so much, and please continue to educate people like you're doing. Thank you. Yes. Okay, last question. That can be the last one. I just want to make sure everyone's question can be answered. All right, so why don't we, sorry, go ahead.
Okay, this is somewhat of a superficial question.
Okay.
Kind of lame in comparison to
Oh no, I thought you were like a kind of kidding question. There's no such thing as a superficial question.
Okay, a lot of girls' concern is that, well, not everyone, but some hijabis and not hijabis, they think about how in the world can they feel pretty or feel girly as someone who covers up. Some people think that it takes away, it's supposed to take away from your femininity by covering your body and you're not supposed to show yourself. But at the same time, some girls are like, but I want to feel like a girl, so I would never wear a hijab.
I think it's a very powerful question. I don't know where you thought of superficial. I would turn that question to other people here who are also sitting and to tell us about their experiences. I'm just a quick reflection. For me, it was a very big deal to be beautiful, and especially because of the messages that I'm seeing through major movies. Especially living in LA now, there are so many poster boards everywhere. NorCal is not like that. It's not. I know every movie that's out and every woman that's in every movie that's out. It's in your face all the time. So when the messages that I'm constantly receiving are that the way that you're a superhero is if you wear something super tight. I mean, that's kind of the trend that I want to follow as well, right? However, what helped me was connecting to God. When I started connecting to God, I started realizing that my worth doesn't need to be based on how I look, that my beauty doesn't need to be judged by people around me. It can be judged on how I'm close to God and how I'm struggling to be close to God. So there's a saying in our religion, many sayings, that God doesn't look at your outside, He looks at your actions and your heart. And so when I was able to internalize that, for me, it became much easier to let go of the way people thought of their conceptions of beauty and to beautify myself just for God. It was a blessing that I had a lot of support, and a lot of times Muslim women will do like all-girl parties or like, things like that where they'll get the chance to dress up and kind of do something a little bit different than wearing the scarf on the outside. But a lot of times, like, once a person feels that the sweetness of that connection, it becomes something that one might aspire to and help them feel like a little more beautiful. Does that make sense? Yeah? Does anyone else want to share something in terms of women who know people go through that? Yeah.
I think another thing is, I think it's the saying of the prophet, correct me if I'm wrong, that God is beautiful and God loves beauty.
Yes.
So, the hijab, the purpose of it isn't supposed to, make yourself look ugly. You can still express your personal style and things, but it's just kind of to redefine, that definition of what is beautiful. And, one thing that I kind of started to realize is, especially going through that experience where, popularity is, the most important thing, is that when you kind of meet someone first that's, really beautiful, you might be first, drawn to that person, even just as a friend, you're just oh, I want to be like them or something. And then once you kind of start to know their personality, maybe they have, some negative character, or they have negativity or something, you start to kind of actually somehow your brain starts to make them look less beautiful to you. And I think the opposite is the same too, whereas you see someone with that piety and that character and the way that they hold themselves, and they actually physically start to look more beautiful to you. So I think that just kind of redefining what that is, and kind of putting having your greatest desire to be beautiful in God's eyes, I think kind of is kind of transformational, being that the society is always telling you to look beautiful in men's eyes, even through commercials and everything. So
Thank you so much. That was very, very powerful. Power clap. Thank you so much for that. Does anyone else want to share something like that?
Well, I have a question.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
I have this, when having the head covering, you have this concept of women of being very modest, and then when you find out someone has a very lively personality, you kind of have this shock in your head. I was but you have this concept of being very modest, being very quiet, maybe even docile. And how do you approach when someone kind of reacts to that?
I think that's an amazing question. So I think what should be clarified, in Islam, modesty doesn't mean that a person is quiet, docile, all those things which we associate with modesty. Religiously, modesty is about covering yourself in a certain way, interacting with the opposite gender, or someone who can misinterpret the way that you're acting in a certain way. So for example, I don't know if you noticed, but I'm really loud. I move around a lot. That's who I am. And Islam doesn't ask me to change that. It just asks me to enhance that in a way that's going to be within the guidelines of what God has set for us to interact with one another. So, for example, if I'm talking to a guy, right? I'm going to make sure that when we're speaking, he's not misinterpreting my excitement for flirtation. Does that make sense? There's a difference, and I think all of us, many of us can perceive it, between when I'm flirting with someone and when I'm just really excited and want to share something. I know that people can take me the wrong way because I get super excited. So for me, I know that I need to control that aspect about myself a little bit more when I'm around guys in particular, just so they don't misunderstand what I'm trying to say. That only happened through personal experiences of me realizing oh, you think I like you and I never did. So I need to figure out how to make sure that what I say is not going to be misinterpreted, right? So I guess what I'm trying to say is that while we have this understanding or this concept of Muslim women covering being extremely staying in the house, meek and quiet, and that's very normal considering all the images we constantly receive through the media. But the reality is that we can be super sporty, we can be super whatever, just within certain guidelines, and that God doesn't ask us to change ourselves. He just asks us to enhance whatever things He's given us and to get rid of any qualities that might be displeasing to Him. For example, lying, cheating, all that stuff. I want to get rid of that stuff. But it's all good if I want to be a Pueblo! Onilo! Yes! Does that make sense? Did I answer your question? Yeah? For real? Thank you for asking that question. Thank you. Any last questions? Okay, I'm gonna do a quick time check. Can someone tell me the time, please? I can't see it. 8:20. Okay, so the dessert, the main course. All right, who's gonna tell us about their experiences today? The first one up will get an extremely rigorous handshake from me. Come on, you should all be jumping. Let's go, let's go! Look at the camera. Alright, go ahead.
Okay, I had it for most of the day, and it got really hot, and I went to go run, so I took it off. Sorry, guys.
It's all good, it's all good.
But it was pretty cool. I don't know who I was telling, whoever was listening, I guess. I kind of felt like a celebrity, because I felt like everybody was looking at me. I don't know if that's like a good thing or not.
I think that all the time, yes.
Yeah, so yeah, I did feel like a little different as far as that goes, because I had to go off campus, and so I was kind of in a different environment. And then like even some of my friends in class, they didn't recognize me, so they didn't sit next to me, and I was just kind of like, oh man, like what happened? But other than that, that's pretty much how my day went. Oh, and it was really hot.
Yeah. It could also have been the material you're wearing, but yeah, definitely. I think our bodies get used to the layers because sometimes we're like, oh yeah, we never get hot in this ever. But then we're like, oh my god, it's so hot. But that's when, for us, then it's like, okay, even if it's hot, I'm trying to do this for a higher purpose. Because yeah, sometimes it gets really hot and it's like, man, wow, it's really hot today. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, thank you so much. Powerful. Thank you, Jennifer. All right, who's next? Who wants to share next? I'll give you a high five this time. Yeah, let's go! You ready for this one? Ready? Yes!
Hi everyone.
What is your name?
My name's Maisha.
Maisha?
Yeah, Maisha. So I wore for the majority of the day, and then it kind of failed. I know how to put it on, so I just wear it.
It's all good, it's all good.
Yeah, but it was really interesting. Like she said that it felt like a lot of people were staring at me. I noticed that, like as I was walking. Like normally you just a person walking to class among everybody else, but everybody was just like kind of looking and glancing at me. It's kind of weird. And then I went to go check out a laptop. And the guy was just looking at me like, okay. Like, he seen me a lot of times. Like, he seen me wearing it. I'm like, what?
What's going on today?
Yeah. So I was just like, and he just like, okay, but whatever. And then I went to my second class. And my friends was like, Maisha, why do you have that on? And I'm just like, oh, and I told them why. And I showed them a little flyer. And they was like, oh, that's really cool. So that made them want to do that. So they would put their little scarves around their head. I noticed that it was a lot of tension was on me. A lot of people kept looking at me, and I just thought like, wow, like I know like I might look at somebody, but it made me rethink how I come about or approach people who wear these, and that make me want to, make me think like, wow, like stuff that they probably go through this on a daily basis, and I know it must suck for them. So, but it made me understand that because I wore it today. So. Yeah.
Is anyone else's heart beginning to melt? Yeah, I know. Thank you both for sharing that. Who wants to go third? Yes, come on up. Give her an incentive. She was just up here.
I've been wanting to do this for a while. I'm really excited to have the chance to be able to do this. So thank you very much for putting this on. So as I come in because I work with the office here in the SAC, and I come in and my friends are like, what, you're wearing this, and my friends were like, oh, you look really pretty, and I love the color you picked out because it makes my eyes pop, so thank you. And then my friends were like, you really look Middle Eastern, like you really look Muslim, and I was like, okay. And so I'm just walking to class, and initially like people were like the whole staring, they do the double take, and they're just like staring at you, and I was like, does it look like I have something on my face? Yeah. And I was telling a couple of people this story. There's this class. In my class, there's this guy who I would sit next to, and we started talking during class. And like the whole quarter, we've been sitting next to each other. Like if he's late, he sits next to me, or if I'm late, I sit next to him. And then today he walks in late, and he sees me, and he sits in the row behind me.
Really?
Yeah.
Did he notice you for sure? Like he knew you?
I'm pretty sure because I asked my friends. I was like, "You can tell it's me, right? Like my face doesn't look different." And they're like, "No, we can tell it's you." And So I don't know if it was because of the headscarf or because he was running late, but I was like, I hope it wasn't, because I want to believe in the good of people, but you never know. And for me, I was also telling them another story. I go back into the office after going back to class, and my friend was like, "Oh, you better not have something underneath." And I was like, that was really, really insensitive. I straight up told her, I was like, that was really insensitive. I was like, you can't be saying stuff like that. And for me, I just like, knowing, because I'm undocumented and coming from a space that's more conscious,
Yes.
I felt that was very shocking, especially when it's someone in the space who's a person of color, where we try and encourage conscious in that space, and her saying that, for me, I found it really offensive, and just, it made me realize that some of the comments you probably hear about every day, and it's just like, I found it very shocking, but thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. It's so amazing how every person has different experiences, but there's a very similar trend, right? So thank you so much for having the courage to do that, all three of you. Anyone else?
Someone had to leave, but she left, like she wrote down what she
Oh,
wanted to say, so I'm gonna read
wow.
it. Okay. I met a lot of strangers' eyes today, some good encounters and some bad. Some stares seemed habitual, like the people were used to glancing at a female wearing a hijab out of curiosity. This made me realize the contradictory acknowledgement of the hijab in our society. It's not entirely foreign because we've seen it, at least on one Islamic female. But there's a lot of us who know nothing about it. So I got some stares of people judging me without actually knowing me. It sucked. But then there were some positive glances. I encountered a lot of other hijab pledges and females wearing hijabs who smiled in solidarity. They knew and shared the experience of being singled out by that curious scarf on our heads. And I applaud the ladies who wear this treatment every day. The hijab made me think about this symbol of modesty, self-respect, and beauty that before had I thought was determined by how my hair, makeup, and cute clothes. But the hijab, among other things, made me see that my face was pretty without the superficial stuff. And that others' perspectives on culture, religion, and beauty were not wrong because they were non-Western, but they were simply different. And that's not a bad thing. Thank you for this opportunity.
Wow. Thank you. That was pretty powerful. And then personal realization, what are we looking at? Oh, yeah, please. Yeah. Yay!
Can I start with why I wanted to?
You can start with whatever you want. You can share anything you want.
Okay. Hi, Crystal. I'm Mexican American. I'm Catholic. I grew up Catholic, went to Catholic school, but in school I had to learn about lots of different religions, so I grew up really open-minded and learning about different things, and I've seen Muslims praying behind, what is it? Kerkhoff. And I'm like, wow, that's so beautiful to see people outside praying and being proud. And I've seen also people wearing hijab. And I also thought, man, that's really nice to be proud and wear it, and because I know you have to be really brave to do something like that, because like I'm Catholic, most you have to do is probably like wear a cross, and you can put that under your shirt. So it's like something you do, but it's not nearly as big as coming out, especially in a place like the US with stuff that's been going on, to go out and say, this is me, and be really brave about it. And so when they said, you want to try for a day, I'm like, yeah, sure, why not? And so I did, and I went off campus, and I walked around school, did my normal stuff, and glad to say, like, it was a positive experience. Like, I smile at people and smile back about the same amount of time as when I don't. Smiling at the same spots, and that was really nice.
So you generally had a positive experience.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing. Wow. We're going to take one more. Who wants to be the brave one? Oh, wow! I saw two hands. We're going to take two more. Please go with it. So I keep getting like signals, FYI. We're going to be going until about 8:35, and then we're going to be breaking for a quick prayer break, and then we're going to be grabbing hamburgers for food. Cool? All right. So please.
Hi, my name's Natasha. It was kind of different. Like when I wore this, my friend took me to go wear because I was like, I don't know if I can do that. Like if I can wear this and walk around and be, proud of what I'm wearing, and because I mean it takes a lot to wear this and to wear this and be proud that I'm wearing it. Because I mean I'm representing the Muslim religion, and I don't want to, do something wrong and make it reflect you guys. So, or ladies, I'm sorry. So for me, it was kind of like, okay, I need to go through my day and like, kind of like be more responsible and be more attentive to how my reactions are and what I do. So for me, I wasn't really paying attention to other people and like how they were staring at me, but I did notice that when I would see my friends walking down the halls and stuff, like they didn't recognize me. They didn't see, like, they were like, oh, hi Tasha, how are you? Or like, hey, what's up? I was just like, oh, hi guys. And they're like, what are you wearing? And I was like, oh, it's Hijab day, like they're doing this on
Like,
Bruin. I was like, didn't you know it's on Bruin Walk? They're like, oh, that's so cool. And I was like, you guys should go do it. Like, it's really cool. I don't know if they're still there. You guys should go check. And they're like, oh, we will, maybe. And I was like, well, if you don't, that's okay. And then, like, I went to class, and when I was sitting in class, because I had a morning class with Jennifer, and the same thing happened. Our friends didn't recognize who we were. So they kind of sat in front of us or behind us, and they were like, what are you wearing? What's going on today? So it was really interesting. And then when I went to my second class, I was sitting in class, and like nobody said anything. And like I was go talk to my professor, and she was like, no one said anything. They just kind of were like, what's going on? And just looking kind of funny, and I was like, okay. I didn't say anything. I was just going through my day. Spoke in class, which was kind of different. Like to speak in class and to like be aware that you're wearing this, it was kind of different for me. So I was like, wow, like you really have to like. It's like, is my face like making any weird expressions? Am I giving the wrong signal about how my face is expressing things? And it was kind of like an awkward situation for me, but it was really interesting because I got to sit through the class and be like, okay, well, I'm expressing myself, and they're not looking at my crazy hair how it usually is, because my hair's always like everywhere. They weren't looking at that. They were looking at my face and looking at what I had to say and not what my hair was doing, right? So I was kind of like, okay, this is cool. And then after class, I went to go talk to my professor because I was talking to her about the Immigrant Youth Empowerment Conference. Yes, because she has her husband works with kids in the LAUSD district, and a lot of them are undocumented students. And I was like, there's this conference going on. Maybe they can go. I don't know if they can get into the conference. They might not, there might not be enough space, but it's something that they should be aware of that's going on. And she's like, yeah, I'll tell my husband. I was like, good. This is what the thing is, and I'll email you later with everything. And she's like, so why are you wearing the hijab? And I was like, oh, well, it's hijab day, and there's like, we're going to this thing later on tonight, and it's really cool. And she's like, oh, that's amazing. I'm so proud of you that you actually did something like that. That's really cool. So that was my experience.
Wow. That even with difficult or awkward moments, there seems to be some positivity still in every person's story. Thank you so much for sharing that. Your turn, buddy. Let's go. Yay!
Hey everybody, I'm Alejandra. I actually saw Jennifer and Natasha in class with their hijabs on, and I was like, oh my god, that is really cool, because I wasn't aware that this was going on.
So you were because you saw them wearing it?
I was really inspired. I had never thought about ever wearing a hijab before, but I was like, I think that's a really awesome thing to do. Like, I think this is a really wonderful event. And I went to Bruin Walk, and I talked to some people, and I read the little poster, and I got some pamphlets and stuff, and I read it, and then I left. And I started to do some homework, but I couldn't focus on it. And I was like, why did I not take on the challenge? And it was really, really bothering me. It was for like 20 minutes. I could not do my homework. I was like, why did I not do it in the first place? Like, what am I afraid of? And for 20 minutes, I'm like, what am I afraid of? Like, what is this? And I really couldn't figure it out. And to be quite honest, I still don't know what it is. I think it might have been that I am kind of an extroverted person, and this felt like it was kind of holding me down. So then I was like, you know what, screw it. Like, I gotta stand in solidarity with the rest of my women. And
You
and I put it on, and in a weird way, I felt more exposed. instead of more covered, because it was just my face. Like Natasha was saying, like, it's just your face. And I don't know, like for me, like that's a really beautiful thing, that you can all feel empowered and strong and beautiful without anything else that society tells you needs to be beautiful. Like it's just your face and it's just your personality. So that was something that was really different for me. Like this is just my face and I need to be comfortable with that. And I called my mom and I told her like what I was doing. She was like, yeah, that's really cool. And you know, my day was normal. I did take it off for a little bit because I was really hot, and I think it might have been a little tight so my face was itchy. But I put it back on, and yeah, I want to tell you all that I really admire you, and although a scarf really should not be a big deal, it is, and I do admire the fact that you wear this every day, and you just, you know, you feel empowered by it. And so yeah, that was my experience, and like I said, I admire you all, so thank you.
These every day. I just feel so great. I just feel like all those bad experiences you have where you just start crying and like, oh my god, why do people are so mean? And then you're like, just remember this day. Remember people who care. Thank you all so much. Alright, I do want to give the opportunity for one more person in case they finally feel inspired. Anyone? You don't have to go. We're just count to 0. 3. Oh my god, we got one!
Okay. My name is Nancy, and I've actually always been really interested in Islamic religion, and I'm also an anthropologist, or I study anthropology, so it's always like caught my eye, you know, how women go about. And I've always wanted to do it myself, like kind of do my own like little research project and like go to like really public places. I never got to do it, so it was like a huge thing yesterday when I was asked to pledge, and I said I'd do it. So I went to the booth. And the first thing I noticed, observing people, is not so much that I got a double take, but that they wouldn't make eye contact with me. It was like a really like
the elephant in the room.
Yeah. Like they look at you and then they look away and like purposely not try to look back, which I thought was really interesting. And nothing really eventful like happened during the day until I'd gone to outside of school. I feel like it's always like the people that are in school are nicer maybe, they're more enlightened, they're educated, you know, they're more tolerant. But then I went outside of Westwood to McDonald's and I forgot I had it on because it actually starts feeling like almost like your hair, yeah. So I was like stepping in front of somebody or behind someone, and you know, you can feel when somebody's behind you, and the woman was completely fine with it, but as soon as she turned around and she saw me, like she took a huge like step to the side. So then, for some reason, like you forget what you have on, and I was like, oh, I'm sorry, and then thinking, you know, naturally, it doesn't have to do anything with me, and then I realized, like, oh, crap, like, it's because of the hijab, and I was like, for some reason, I kind of wanted to take that I'm sorry back, because I don't think anyone should have to apologize for your appearance. So yeah, that was...
That's a very powerful statement.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that, and thank you everyone for sharing. I don't want to say we're going to stop now. I'm just going to close my eyes. Someone just raise their hand. That's all good. I'm going to open them now. All right. Thank you. Oh.
I had a question.
Yes.
Was this color chosen for a specific purpose?
That's that. I don't know. What was it? It's her favorite color. So when she's in charge of things, she monopolizes. But it is a really pretty color. You have a good choice. Thank you. Thanks for asking that question. All right. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna break for a prayer. We pray all the time. We pray in our hearts. Praying right now. Oh God, help me. Like anywhere. But there's a different type of prayer that we do 5 times a day, which is a physical gratitude, showing, worshiping God. And that's right now. So we're going to do that. You're more than welcome to join us in whatever way you wish. And then right after that, we're going to be having real hardcore dinner, right? We're going to give it out first? Okay. So actually, we're going to give it out first. And then you can watch us while you're eating. I just want to again thank you all for coming. It's such a big deal to have you here, especially as allies. Sí, se puede.